Good morning and welcome to this presentation from Confer Mentoring. I'm Sandra Coker. We're going to talk about AP English Language, my favorite. And so, again, welcome and let's talk about AP English Language. First thing I want to do is that we're going to talk about the syllabus overview. That's my syllabus for today. When we start our mentoring program, I want to begin with talking about the course. In other words, the expectations that the College Board has for student performance. I've taken some things from the College Board directly so that we can determine the skills that we need to teach, the order perhaps in which we need to teach them, the plans that we have for practices, etc., such things. And the College Board will talk about how the exam is structured. Some of you may already know that, how it's scored, how much the parts count, such things as that. And we'll also talk about your own syllabus. If you have one already, it won't hurt to talk about it and see where we need to make changes, if so. And if you're planning it, if you're writing it now, there's some good information from the College Board, and I can help you with that as well. The first thing that I like to do in my class is begin with the basics. There are just some things that the students must have in place in order to do well. First of all, devices. And you may be calling those literary terms. When I first started teaching this course, I had a handbook to literature, and I thought that, oh my gosh, I have to teach all these things, but you don't. I've created a list of what I consider to be the most important devices, literary terms, if you will, rhetorical terms, that the students most need to know. And not only do they need to know them, they need to be using them every day. So we'll talk about that. The appeals, the rhetorical appeals, are critical to any understanding of how to perform well in this course. So I've got a lot of strategies for that. We'll talk about it in depth. We'll do a lot of practices ourselves and then take those directly to the classroom. Vocabulary is critical. I have some ideas about vocabulary. You can't spend a lot of time on vocabulary, but some vocabulary study on a regular basis is important. But we'll talk about that. Syntax. Students need to learn to deliberately plan a sentence, if you will. Of course, they can write sentences, one would hope. They should have the skill for English language, but many times they don't. So we'll work a little bit with syntax. And imitation is a strategy that I found to be so helpful, both with teachers and with students, to really examine a piece of writing. So I have a lot of activities for that too. Multiple choice is a critical element in this course and in this exam. I have mine, I give them strategies for reading, strategies for pacing, and they know that they're going to have a pre-20th century passage, contemporary passages, usually a mix. So they're ready, and we practice for both times. They have the question stems. I show them the question stems and how to read the questions. So I have some strategies for understanding the kind of questions that will be asked. And then we work on reflections. It's looking at and thinking about what you've learned and how you perform. So I have some really helpful strategies for that as well. Then for close reading and analysis, my view is that the analysis is probably the most important aspect of the reading and the writing that we do, because it leads to, um, it lends itself to both the argument and the synthesis question. So we spend a good deal of time on analysis. And again, the passages are pre-20th and 20th, the same time that they'll see on the multiple choice. I have several activities for reading and annotating both. And then, again, the strategies for reading. We have several activities for reading to analyze what a writer is doing. We'll also look at strategies for writing because the analysis typically has the lowest mean score, but not the last 2 years. It's been the argument. However, again, the analysis is critical. And then we'll look at the scoring guide for analysis, and we'll really break it down into its parts and see how the elements go together to I guess, show the students their expectations. Then we have several activities for planning an argument and for constructing the argument. But of course, then the analysis, where the analysis comes in, you have to read it and understand it first, and then create your own response to that argument. This is where the rhetorical appeals comes in for students, both planning and constructing, and then again analyzing. We'll look at the classical arrangement. Students must have some sort of organizational pattern that's evident, and so we have activities for that. We have a lot of guided practice. I've broken this down into small parts so that the students can learn how to construct an argument, but doing it by its parts. And then again, the scoring guide for the argument that we use the College Board, and we'll look at the parts of it to, again, see how the scores are compiled. And then the synthesis essay, the most complex of the 3 kinds of essays that the students write, yet it involves, because it involves both analysis and argument. And there are several strategies that the students need to have in place when they attempt the synthesis question. So I always give them an overview and talk about how it's useful and show them what's expected of them. And so some background for them, I guess, before we start. Then we're going to look at comparison because that's essentially what the synthesis is. It's a comparison of several different sources in order to respond in an evaluation or a proposition. Visual elements are a part of the synthesis. So we have a vocabulary for talking about visuals, should the students decide to, but at least they need to have those that skill set and that knowledge in place in order to understand how the visuals contribute to an argument or are an argument. And then have a really good activity for writing a documented argument that my students enjoy, and teachers generally appreciate this. So we'll look at links at documented arguments. Again, we have the scoring guide, and we'll look at how it's structured to render a score, if you will, on the synthesis. We'll also look at the student samples from the 2004 exam, the analysis question, the argument question, and the synthesis question to see how they, if there's anything different about them. Sometimes the passages are long, sometimes they're short, there may be a different kind of arrangement. But we'll look at the student samples. My students always like to look at student essays. They've told me before we need to look at more samples. And they're very good at scoring them. Even if they maybe aren't so good at writing them, they usually are quite good at scoring them. So all these things are included in our year of mentoring. I hope to work with you. I'm looking forward to it. Um, we'll talk about your own student populations. We have to take a look at where our students begin when they come to us. If they're in a good pre-AP program, they should have more skills in place, but very often, well, not very often, but sometimes they're not. And sometimes they're really challenged by this particular course because they've never heard the word rhetoric or discourse or used it themselves. Um, we'll talk about how often to practice the strategies, about different ways to break things down into smaller elements that are teachable and doable in a class period, and then those that need to be spread out over time and repeated all year. We'll also talk about perhaps a mock exam, whether or not you might want to have one for your students, different ways to set it up. And we'll talk. I'll talk with you individually. We'll meet via maybe webcam or what are we? Go to meeting on the web. I can't remember the name of the program we're using today. At any rate, this is, in my view, the best course for students to take. It's the course for everyday rhetoric, for the things that were presented each day visually and in writing. Even when we're driving, we're seeing arguments all over the side of the road in the forms of advertising. And the kids are certainly video savvy. And this course particularly is important for every college course because you have to, in your own college courses, you had to come in and perform perhaps, or perhaps you had to write a paper that had to be documented. So most courses that they take will require the skills that we'll address, and they're so important. And again, I really love teaching the course. I am a consultant for the College Board. I score the exams. I have served as a reader, a table leader, and most recently a question leader. I do conferences. I present at conferences for the College Board and several APSI. So I'm going to be on the road all summer. I have no summer. But if you're interested and you'd like to know more, and if you'd like my help in whatever way I can give it, we're going to meet on Tuesdays from 4:30 to 6. So I hope you will join us, and thank you. If you're teaching this course for the first time and you don't have any idea where to start, you might try the College Board website. I've given you the URL for it. And once you get in there, you might have to register as a teacher, go in as an educator, and you can find there the different courses. You select the course that you're going to teach, which is AP English Language. You'll then find on that site the course description that you can read for yourself. It's lengthy, but in that course description, you'll find sample questions, pre-response questions, student samples with commentary, and you'll find multiple choice questions. Sometimes you can find them with rationales for why the correct answer is correct. And you'll also find a list of recommended texts. It's a very helpful site. So I recommend that that's your starting place. Go to AP Central and find something in there to study. And then as soon as you're registered for the course, Confer Mentoring and the Center for Educational Revision will let me know. And I'll send you a couple of documents to help you get started for the year. You'll have the devices that you need to teach and a syntax assignment. So those are good places to start. So again, this footnote ends, and I hope to see you in August. Thanks.